The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their floating pods, their voices mixing into a worried murmur that echoed off the crystal walls. In the center pod, Susan Carter shifted uncomfortably in her formal uniform. As Earth's first representative to the Council, she had grown used to being the only human in the room. But today felt different. The Council leader, a tall Malorian with shimmering blue skin, raised all four of his hands for silence. "The Void Swarm has broken through our outer defenses," he announced, his translator making his voice sound flat and emotionless. "3 more worlds have gone dark this cycle." Susan watched the alien faces around her. Some species she recognized. The tree-like Zixteri, the crystalline Phodians, the gaseous Welkin clouds in their containment fields. Others were so strange she still couldn't tell where their eyes were, if they had any. But they all shared one thing: fear. "Our automated defense systems have failed," continued the Council leader. "The swarm adapts too quickly to our programmed responses. The outer colonies are falling one by one." A Zixteri representative waved its branch-like limb. "Why not send our warships? Surely our combined fleet's cooled." "We have no warships," interrupted a Phodian, its crystal body flashing red with emotion. "Not anymore. We evolved past the need for military vessels centuries ago. Our ships are for science, exploration, and trade." Susan sat up straighter. This was news to her. No warships. None at all. The Council leader turned his attention to her. "Most advanced species eventually move beyond warfare, Representative Carter. As civilizations evolve, they typically abandon military force in favor of diplomatic solutions. The concept of organized violence becomes distasteful." "But what about defense?" Susan asked, trying to keep the disbelief from her voice. "How do you protect yourselves?" "Automated systems. Defensive shields." "Warning, boys," replied the Welkin representative, its gas form swirling faster with agitation. "We haven't needed actual warriors for generations. The very idea of beings fighting other beings is considered primitive." Susan thought about the military forces back on Earth. The armies, navies, and air forces that humanity maintained even in times of peace. She had always felt slightly embarrassed about this when talking to the other species, as if it proved humans weren't as advanced. Now she saw it differently. "The Void Swarm isn't interested in diplomacy," she said slowly. "From what you've told us, they're consuming entire worlds. You need ships that can fight back. You need soldiers who can make quick decisions in battle. You need—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You need humans." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Council leader's skin rippled with surprise. "Humans? But your species is one of the youngest in the Council. Your technology is centuries behind most members. Your reliance on military force is one of the main reasons some argued against accepting Earth into the Council at all." "Exactly," Susan said, standing up in her pod. "We still know how to fight. We understand warfare not just as theory, but as practice. Our soldiers train for combat. Our officers study strategy and tactics. We maintain fleets designed for battle." She looked around the chamber. "You invited Earth to join the Council because you said you valued our unique perspective. Well, this is it. We can help you fight the swarm." "But human weapons are so primitive," objected the Phodian. "Then give us access to your advanced technology," Susan replied. "Let us combine your science with our combat experience. The Void Swarm is breaking through because your automated systems can't think creatively in battle. But human soldiers can. We can adapt, improvise, and overcome." The Council chamber fell silent. Susan could see the conflict on their alien faces, the disgust at the idea of warfare warring with their desperate need for a solution. Finally, the Council leader spoke. "Representative Carter, are you saying that humanity would willingly fight for the Council, would take up arms against the swarm?" Susan smiled grimly. "Give me 1 hour to contact Earth. I promise you, When I tell our military leaders that there's an enemy out there consuming entire worlds, they'll have ships ready to launch before I finish speaking. She straightened her uniform. Humanity knows war is sometimes necessary. And when it is, we don't stand back. We bring the battle. The council leader's skin turned a deep shade of blue as he considered her words. Around the chamber, the representatives began nodding slowly. They had spent so long seeing humanity's warrior nature as a weakness. Now, it might be the galaxy's only hope. Contact your leaders, Representative Carter, the council leader said finally. Tell them the galaxy needs Earth's warriors. And may whatever gods you believe in help us all. Admiral David Foster stood at the window of his office in the Space Force Command Center, watching the sunset over the Rocky Mountains. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived just 10 minutes ago, and he was still trying to process its contents. The large screen behind him flickered to life, showing the tired face of General Amy Wilson. Tell me you've read the same report I just got, David, she said, running a hand through her gray hair. Tell me I'm not going crazy. If you mean the part about advanced aliens needing our help because they forgot how to fight, then yes, we're reading the same thing. David turned from the window, his weathered face serious. Looks like First Contact wasn't just about cultural exchange after all. They've been watching us, Amy said. All those alien observers at our military exercises, the ones who seemed so disturbed by our war games. They weren't judging us. They were studying us. David nodded, picking up his tablet to review the message again. The Galactic Council had sent detailed scans of the Void Swarm's attacks. The images showed entire planets being consumed by what looked like living darkness. 3 years of them acting superior about how primitive and violent we are. And now they need that same violence to save them. His secure phone buzzed. The president was calling an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs in 1 hour. Before he could answer it, another call came in, this time from space. The large screen split to show Susan Carter's face alongside General Wilson's. Admiral Foster, Susan said, her image slightly delayed by the distance. I assume you've received the council's message. Just reviewing it now, David replied. You've put us in an interesting position, Representative Carter. The aliens who once called us barely civilized are now asking for our help. Susan's face was serious. Sir, I know how it sounds, but I've seen the data. The Void Swarm has destroyed 12 worlds in the past month alone. These advanced species, they've forgotten how to fight. Their ships have weapons, but their people don't know real combat strategy. They don't understand things like tactical retreats or flanking maneuvers, because they let computers do all their fighting, Amy added, shaking her head. And now those computers can't keep up with an enemy that learns and adapts. David walked to his desk and pressed a button. A holographic map of known space appeared, showing the Void Swarm's advance in red. They're moving fast. At this rate, they'll reach Earth in 8 months. 7, Susan corrected. The Council has better ships than us, faster, stronger, with better weapons. But they need humans to crew them, to fight them, to make the split-second decisions that computers can't. David studied the map, his military mind already working on strategies. What's the status of the Council's fleet? 5,000 ships, mostly science and exploration vessels, that can be converted for combat. Their weapons technology is about 300 years ahead of ours. But they have no trained crews, no tactical experience, no real understanding of warfare. And they want us to provide all of that, Amy said, to take their advanced toys and show them how to fight a war. David smiled grimly. Well, they came to the right species. He turned back to Susan's image. Tell the Council that Earth accepts their request for military aid. But we do this our way. I want full access to their ship designs, their weapon specs, everything. If we're going to fight this war for them, we need to understand every tool at our disposal. Susan nodded, relief clear on her face. They'll agree. They're desperate, Admiral. You should see them. These highly advanced beings, terrified because they've forgotten how to defend themselves. They need us, not just our strength, but our understanding of warfare. Then let's show them what humanity can do, David said. He looked at the map again, at the red tide of the void swarm flowing across space. General Wilson, begin selecting crews for training. Representative Carter, tell the Council to start sending their technical data. We've got 7 months to turn the most advanced peace-loving species in the galaxy into a fighting force. Amy's face hardened with determination. They spent all this time thinking we were primitive because we still trained for war. Now they'll see why we never stopped. Yes, David agreed, watching the sun's final rays fade over the mountains. They're about to learn why humanity never fully gave up its weapons. Sometimes peace can only be protected through the readiness for war. He straightened his uniform, and we're about to show the galaxy exactly how ready we are. Commander Rachel Martinez walked through the massive hangar of the newly established Earth Council Joint Training Facility in Nevada. Above her, floating in anti-gravity fields, were 3 alien ships that still took her breath away every time she saw them. They were beautiful, sleek, and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. And now, it was her job to turn them into weapons of war. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Peter Brown, jogging up to her with a tablet in his hand. The first group of human crews just finished their basic training on the alien tech. You're going to want to see these results. Rachel took the tablet, her eyes widening as she read the numbers. They learned the systems this fast. Yes, Mom. Turns out video games weren't a waste of time after all. Peter grinned. Our younger recruits especially. They're picking up the alien interfaces like they were born to it. The council observers can't believe it. As if on cue, a tall Nilorian scientist floated over to them, his blue skin glowing with excitement. "Commander Martinez, your species continues to amaze us," he said through his translator. "We expected it would take months for humans to understand our technology. Instead, they're already suggesting improvements to our combat systems." Rachel nodded, hiding her smile. The aliens still didn't understand that humans have been imagining space battles in movies, books, and games for centuries. All those primitive entertainment programs had actually prepared humanity for this moment. "Show me the weapons testing range," she ordered, and both Peter and the Malorian followed her through a set of heavy doors. The testing range was a massive desert area, now filled with holographic targets and practice drones. A human crew was operating one of the alien ships, putting it through maneuvers that made the watching council representatives gasp. "They're not supposed to be able to turn that sharply," the Malorian said, his skin changing color in surprise. "The ship's programming should prevent such aggressive movements." "We turned off the safety protocols," Rachel explained. "In real combat, we need the ships to do exactly what we tell them to do, when we tell them to do it. No computer limitations." On the range, the ship barrel rolled and fired its energy weapons in a spread pattern that took out multiple targets at once. The human pilot had learned this trick from old World War II studies about fighter plane tactics. Rachel's comm unit buzzed. "Commander, we have a priority message from Fleet Command," the voice said. "The Void Swarm just took another system. They're moving faster than predicted." The mood in the room instantly changed. Rachel turned to Peter. "Speed up the training schedules. I want crews working in shifts around the clock. And get me Admiral Foster." Minutes later, she was in the command center, looking at a holographic map with Admiral Foster's image floating beside it. "Sir, our crews are learning the alien tech faster than expected, but we're still not ready for full combat operations." "We don't have a choice anymore, Rachel," Foster replied grimly. "The swarm has picked up speed. They'll reach the first human colony in 5 months, not 7. We need ships in space now." Rachel straightened her shoulders. "Then give me 2 weeks, sir. I'll have the first combat-ready crews prepared by then. We're already modifying the alien ships, adding human-style command centers, installing manual overrides, setting up actual targeting systems instead of their automated ones. The council representatives are okay with these modifications. They don't have a choice either, sir. Their way of fighting didn't work. It's time to try ours. Admiral Foster nodded. 2 weeks, Commander. Then I want our first battle group ready to deploy. Show me what you and your teams can do. After the call ended, Rachel walked back to the hangar. The crews were still training, pushing the alien ships to their limits. Nearby, Council scientists watched with a mixture of horror and amazement as humans systematically stripped away centuries of safety protocols and automated systems, replacing them with manual controls and weapon systems that could actually fight a war. Your people move so fast, the Malorian scientist said, floating up beside her again. In 2 days, you've made more changes to our ships than we made in the last century. Rachel watched as another ship pulled off a perfect attack run, its human crew working together like a well-oiled machine. That's because we never forgot something your people did, she said quietly. We never forgot that sometimes you have to fight to survive. And when that time comes, you need to be ready. Above them, the ships continued their dance, human crews learning to merge their ancient combat knowledge with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. In 2 weeks, they would face the Void Swarm, and they would show the galaxy why humanity never stopped preparing for war. Lieutenant John Cooper stood before a room full of alien observers, pointing at the large screen behind him. On it was a simple diagram showing how a smaller force could defeat a larger one through clever positioning. This is what we call guerrilla warfare, he explained, watching their confused faces. Sometimes you can't match your enemy's strength, so you have to be smarter. Hit them where they don't expect it. Then disappear before they can hit back. A Phodian raised its crystalline hand. But that seems dishonorable. Should we not face our enemy directly? John shook his head. The Void Swarm doesn't care about honor. They're eating your worlds. We need to fight smart, not fair. He pressed a button, and the screen showed a new image. A simulation of their modified alien ships hiding in an asteroid field. Look at what we did here. Your ships already had cloaking technology, but you only used it for scientific research. We're going to use it to set up ambushes. The room buzzed with uncomfortable murmurs. These advanced species had spent centuries avoiding anything that looked like combat. Now they had to learn it all at once. Sir, a young communications officer burst into the room. We've got contact. Void Swarm scout ships heading toward the Centauri colony. John's heart raced, but his voice stayed calm. How many? 3 ships, sir. They haven't spotted us yet. This was it. Their first real chance to test their new tactics against the enemy. John turned to the alien observers. Watch and learn. This is what humanity brings to the fight. In the command center, John joined Commander Martinez as she coordinated their response. 2 modified alien ships, crewed by humans, were already in position near the colony. Remember your training. Rachel's voice came over the comm. Hit and run. Don't try to be heroes. John watched the tactical display as their ships waited, hidden behind a small moon. The Void Swarm scouts were moving fast, their black ships looking like tears in the fabric of space. Now, Rachel ordered. The human ships burst from hiding, their weapons already firing. The Void Swarm scouts, caught completely by surprise, took heavy damage before they could react. One scout exploded immediately. The second tried to turn but was too slow. The third scout started to run. Don't let it escape, John called out. If it warns the main fleet. Watch this, said the pilot of Ship 2. The human crew had modified their ship's energy weapons to create a wide area disruption field, something the aliens had never thought to do with their technology. The field caught the fleeing scout, shutting down its engines. In less than 5 minutes, all 3 Void Swarm scouts were destroyed. No human ships were lost. The alien observers stood in shocked silence. Finally, the Phodian spoke again. That was incredible. You didn't even give them a chance to fight back. That's the point, John explained. In real combat, You don't want a fair fight. You want to win. To protect your people. He pulled up the battle recording, starting to break down each move for them. See how we used the moon for cover. How we struck from an unexpected angle. How we modified your weapons to do things you never considered. This is what happens when you combine human combat experience with advanced technology. A Welkin observer swirled thoughtfully in its containment field. Our species spent so long trying to move past violence that we forgot its utility. We thought we were evolving, but perhaps we were just becoming vulnerable. Being peaceful is good, John said, but you also need to be ready to defend that peace. Humanity learned that lesson a long time ago. That's why we never stopped studying war, even when we didn't want to fight one. The battle data was already being sent to other human ships throughout the galaxy. This first victory, small as it was, proved that their tactics could work against the Void Swarm. Lieutenant Cooper, Commander Martinez, called out, "The Council wants all the data from this engagement. They're starting to understand why we train the way we do." John nodded, turning back to his alien students. This was just the beginning. The Void Swarm will adapt, and so will we. But now they know something important. They're not fighting automated defenses anymore. They're fighting humans, and we know how to fight back. The room was quiet as the aliens studied the battle recordings, finally beginning to understand why humanity's primitive nature might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. Major Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of the renamed battleship Thunderchild, watching as her fleet of 50 ships moved into position. The ships, though alien-built, now bristled with human modifications. Their once smooth hulls were now marked with battle scars and hastily added weapon mounts. "Main Void Swarm fleet detected," called out her sensor operator. "They're moving exactly where we predicted." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. After 3 months of hit-and-run attacks, they had finally learned enough about how the Void Swarm fought. Now it was time for something bigger. "All ships, maintain radio silence," she ordered. "Remember the plan. We're not just fighting today. We're teaching them a lesson about human warfare." Around her ship, hidden in a dense debris field, the rest of the fleet waited. They had spent weeks setting this trap, deliberately losing small battles to make the swarm think this sector was weakly defended. "Enemy ships entering the kill zone," the sensor operator whispered. Lisa watched as the massive Void Swarm fleet moved forward. Their black ships looked like a cloud of locusts, hundreds of them moving together. They had no idea they were flying right into humanity's first major offensive. "Now," Lisa said quietly. Across the debris field, hidden human ships activated their weapons, but they didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, they triggered the thousands of mines they had hidden throughout the area. The explosions ripped through the Void Swarm's tight formation, forcing their ships to scatter. "Phase 2, Lisa commanded. 20 ships powered up from behind the larger pieces of debris, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns they had practiced for weeks. The Void Swarm, already confused by the mines, found themselves being attacked from multiple directions. "They're trying to regroup," someone called out. "Standard attack pattern forming." "Just like we wanted," Lisa said. "Execute Phase 3. This was the real trap. While the first 20 ships kept the swarm distracted, the remaining 30 vessels emerged from their hiding spots behind them. The Void Swarm had grown used to fighting enemies that attacked head-on. They weren't prepared for an attack from both front and rear. "Mom," her communications officer called out. "The Council observation ships are broadcasting. They can't believe what they're seeing." Lisa didn't have time to worry about their audience. The battle was reaching its critical point. The Void Swarm ships were trying to adapt, but they were caught in a classic hammer and anvil trap, one that human armies had been using for thousands of years. "All ships, activate the new weapons," she ordered. This was their biggest gamble. Human engineers had discovered that the aliens' advanced shield technology could be modified to create focused gravity wells. As the weapons activated, dozens of void swarm ships found themselves being pulled together, crashing into each other. Direct hits on 60% of enemy ships, the tactical officer reported. They're breaking formation. They're retreating. Cheer went up across the bridge. This was the first time anyone had seen the void swarm retreat. But Lysa wasn't done yet. Launch pursuit teams, she ordered. Don't let them regroup. Flight groups 3 and 4, cut off their escape route. Let's show them that humans don't just win battles. We make sure they stay won. The next hour was a systematic destruction of the remaining void swarm ships. When it was over, Lysa finally allowed herself to relax in her command chair. Message from the Galactic Council, Mom, the comm officer said. They're shocked. The Malorian representative says he's never seen such an aggressive and successful military operation. Lysa knew why. The Council races had spent centuries letting computers fight their battles. They had forgotten that real warfare wasn't just about having better technology. It was about strategy, deception, and the willingness to do whatever it took to win. Send them the battle recordings, she said. Make sure they understand every phase. This is why humanity never stopped training for war, because someone had to remember how to fight these battles. As her crew began the after-action reports, Lysa thought about how far they'd come. 3 months ago, the galaxy had seen humans as primitive because they still practiced warfare. Now that same primitive knowledge had just won the biggest victory against the Void Swarm in history. Message from Admiral Foster, Mom, the comm officer said. Just 3 words. Humanity brought battle. Lysa smiled. Yes, they had brought battle. And they were just getting started. Colonel Robert Wilson surveyed the massive holographic display showing over 300 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy's history. Human crews now commanded most vessels, their once pristine alien hulls modified with extra weapons and armor. All fleet commanders report ready, said his executive officer, Captain Mary Duncan. The Void Swarm's main hive is just where our scouts found it. Robert nodded, his face grim. After 6 months of battles, they had finally tracked the swarm to its source, a massive structure floating in deep space that looked like a twisted black coral reef. Open channel to all ships, he ordered. When Mary nodded, he spoke. This is Colonel Wilson. For months, we've fought these creatures across the galaxy. We've shown them that humanity knows how to fight. Now it's time to show them how humanity ends a war. He turned to the alien representatives on his bridge. After months of fighting alongside humans, they had finally started to understand. The Malorian admiral even wore a modified human uniform now. Begin Operation Thunderstrike, Robert commanded. The fleet moved forward in formation. Robert had divided them into 5 groups, each trained for a specific role in the battle. The aliens had wanted to simply attack head-on with everything they had. But humans knew better. First wave, engage, he ordered. 50 ships shot forward, looking like they were making a direct assault on the hive. The Void Swarm responded exactly as expected, sending out hundreds of ships to meet them. They took the bait, Mary said, watching the tactical display. Second and third waves, execute flanking maneuver. This was classic human strategy. Use a small force to draw out the enemy, then hit them from the sides with your real attack. 100 ships emerged from hidden positions, catching the swarm forces in a deadly crossfire. Enemy ships breaking formation. The tactical officer reported. They're trying to regroup around the hive. Not this time, Robert said. Fourth wave, begin your run. 70 ships that had been hiding behind a nearby moon powered up their engines. But instead of joining the battle, they charged straight for the hive. The Void Swarm had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice their front lines to strike at their heart. Sir, the sensor officer called out, the hive is powering up some kind of energy weapon. Right on schedule, Robert smiled. Fifth wave, you have your target. The final wave of ships appeared from behind a cloak of modified shield energy. They had only one job: take out the Hive's main weapon before it could fire. Years of action movies had taught humanity that every superweapon had a weak point. You just had to be brave enough to get close to it. Direct hits on the Hive's weapon ports, came the excited report. Their defenses are failing. Robert leaned forward in his command chair. All ships, commence final attack run. Remember your training. Fight smart, fight hard, and show them why humanity never forgot the art of war. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human crews pulled maneuvers that the ship's original designers had thought impossible. They used tactics from Earth's ancient naval battles, from World War I dogfights, and even from space combat video games. The Void Swarm, for the first time, faced an enemy that didn't fight according to logical patterns. Humans would sacrifice ships to gain an advantage. They would take crazy risks that paid off just often enough to matter. They fought with a creativity that no computer could match. Hive structural integrity failing. The tactical officer reported, "We're doing it, sir. We're actually doing it." Robert watched as the massive Hive structure began to break apart. The remaining Void Swarm ships, cut off from their control center, started to drift aimlessly in space. "All ships, target those drifting vessels," he ordered. "We finish this today. No survivors, no chance of them rebuilding." The Malorian admiral touched his arm. "Such thoroughness in victory," he said. "We would have simply celebrated once the Hive was destroyed." "That's why you needed us," Robert replied. "Humanity learned a long time ago. When you fight a war, you make absolutely sure it stays won." As the last Void Swarm ships exploded into space dust, Robert thought about how far they'd come. The galaxy had thought humans were primitive for maintaining their military knowledge. Instead, that knowledge had saved them all. "Message from Fleet Command, sir," Mary said. "Admiral Foster sends his congratulations. The war is over. Humanity brought the battle and won it." The Galactic Council chamber looked very different now. Where once there had been only floating pods filled with peaceful delegates, now there were military uniforms mixed among the aliens. At the center of it all stood Admiral David Foster, his chest bearing both human medals and alien honors. "The Void Swarm has been completely destroyed," he reported to the assembled representatives. "Their hive is gone, their ships are space dust, and their threat to the galaxy is over. Humanity brought the battle, as promised." Susan Carter, still Earth's main representative, couldn't help but smile at how much things had changed. The aliens who once looked down on humans as primitive now watched their military leaders with respect and even awe. "The galaxy owes humanity a debt we can never repay," the council leader said, his blue skin glowing with emotion. "We had forgotten the importance of being ready to defend ourselves. In our rush to evolve past warfare, we nearly ensured our own destruction." Major Lisa Brooks stepped forward next, her battle-worn uniform standing out among the pristine alien robes. "Which is why we propose the creation of a permanent combined defense force," she said. "A military organization that brings together human combat experience with advanced alien technology." The chamber buzzed with discussion. A year ago, such a suggestion would have been met with horror. Now, after seeing the Void Swarm's devastation, the aliens understood the need. "Already, some of your people have started training with us," Commander Rachel Martinez added. She gestured to a group of younger aliens wearing modified human military uniforms. "They understand that being peaceful doesn't mean being defenseless." The Malorian admiral who had fought in the final battle stood up. "My people once thought warfare was beneath us," he said. "But humans taught us that there is honor in defending others. That sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is remember the basic lessons of survival." David watched as more aliens nodded in agreement. The changes were already happening. Ships were being rebuilt with both combat and peaceful purposes in mind. Young aliens were signing up for military training, learning to balance their advanced civilization with the need for defense. Lieutenant John Cooper stepped forward with a data display. "We're already seeing improvements," he said. The new combined ships are faster and more powerful than anything either of us could build alone. Human tactical knowledge mixed with alien technology is creating better ways to protect the galaxy. Susan stood up in her pod. When you first invited Earth to join the Galactic Council, you said you wanted our unique perspective. Well, you got it. Humanity reminded the galaxy that peace is something you have to be strong enough to protect. The council leader raised all four hands for attention. Then let it be recorded in the Great Archive. From this day forward, humanity will lead the combined defense force. Their primitive knowledge of warfare has proven to be their greatest gift to galactic civilization. David stepped forward one last time. We accept this honor, but with a condition. The CDS motto will be peace through readiness. Because that's the lesson here. You don't have to love war to be ready for it. Humanity never forgot that, and now neither will the galaxy. As the council chamber erupted in applause, David looked at his team. Rachel Martinez, who had trained the first human crews on alien ships, John Cooper, who taught ancient combat tactics to advanced species, Lysa Brooks, who led the first major victory against the swarm. They had all helped prove that humanity's warrior knowledge wasn't primitive, it was essential. Message from Earth, sir, his aide whispered, handing him a tablet. They're asking what's next. David smiled as he read the message. Across Earth, military academies were being expanded to accept alien students. Shipyards were being built to combine human and alien technology. A new age was beginning. Tell them what's next is what humanity does best, he said. We keep learning, we keep improving, and we stay ready. Because somewhere out there, something worse than the void swarm might be waiting. And when it comes, humanity will bring the battle. Susan finished for him, smiling, just like we always have. The chamber slowly emptied, but the change it represented would last forever. The galaxy had learned that true civilization wasn't about forgetting how to fight. It was about remembering why you fought. And humanity, the species they once thought primitive, had been the ones to teach them that lesson.